Happy Halloween, Muskies, and welcome to our 2014 midterm election show. I'm Nick Berkman.
And I'm Amira Savani, and this is Xavier News.
From the Xavier University Television Studio, this is Xavier News.
Tuesday is midterm election day in America, which means that every congressional seat and many gubernatorial and Senate seats are being voted on. Though the Republican Party currently has a majority in the House of Representatives and the Democratic Party has a majority in the Senate, it is possible that these conditions will change by next week. Historical election trends suggest that midterm elections typically see the president's political party lose seats in Congress, and the most recent polling data suggests that this election will probably be no different. Polls suggest that the House will stay solidly in the hands of the Republicans and that the Senate races will be close, but that Republicans may take control of the Senate. Many attribute this to the recent unpopularity of President Obama, as he has been dealing with one of the most difficult stretches of his presidency. Senate terms last 6 years, although not all Senate seats are up for election at the same time. This year, there are elections for 36 of those seats. Of those 36, Republicans currently hold 15 seats and Democrats hold 21 seats, but polling information suggests that Democrats may lose some footing. State elections that are too close to call and will seriously affect the outcome of the race include Georgia, North Carolina, Kansas, Iowa, Louisiana, New Hampshire, Alaska, Colorado, Arkansas, and Kentucky. While things often change in the days leading up to the election, the numbers suggest that the Republican Party may have control of both the House and the Senate for the next 2 years, which will make it rather difficult for both the President and Congress to pass any sort of legislation by a tough gridlock of ideologies. If elected, Micah Camrus aims to improve education systems in Cincinnati. Here's Bridget Rodriguez with more.
Education is the main issue Micah Camrus wants to focus on in his campaign.
So if Micah is to be elected next week, what he'll focus on doing in Columbus is working across the aisle, working with Republicans and Democrats alike, find a school funding formula that's more equitable so that kids in Cincinnati, the city of Cincinnati, get the same opportunity to quality education, quality teachers, and quality programming.
Unfortunately, not all schools in Cincinnati have the best systems.
Education is a crucial issue for the campaign for one simple reason. It's the number one thing the state spends money on. The state legislature has two constitutional obligations. They're required to pass a budget every year, and they're required to create a proficient, a successful school system for every child in Ohio.
Micah Camrus' interest for a better education system comes from his experience of having a great education.
Ohio schools are, right now going through a state of transition. Some schools are doing very well, and some schools are struggling. A lot of schools are struggling. Too many schools are struggling. And one of the reasons, Micah chose to run is because he was fortunate enough to have such a great education.
His comprehensive plan to better education systems will also be beneficial for students striving for a higher education after high school.
So the number one thing Micah wants to do in terms of college affordability is do what's called a guaranteed tuition. Right now in a public school in Ohio, let's say the University of Cincinnati, you can walk in as a freshman, your tuition, let's say, is $10,000. Your next year could be $12,000. Your junior year could be $14,000. It's very difficult for families to plan financially when tuition year to year is their best guess. So Micah would advocate for this fixed tuition program, which would mean when you come in as a freshman at UC, you're paying $10,000 a year every year for up to 5 years that you're in school. That's number one way. It'll help keep costs down. And it'll help families be able to plan better and make sure that kids are able to have the college experience they deserve and be prepared for the workforce.
This is Bridget Rodriguez reporting for Xavier News.
Former NFL player turned police officer Darrell Beavers is facing 12 months in prison for theft and inappropriate contact with a teenage girl. Earlier this week, Beavers entered into a plea deal where 4 of the charges against him were dropped. Beavers pled guilty to setting up a fake police substation in an apartment building and receiving nude photos from a 17-year-old Police Explorer participant. Once he is released from prison, Beavers will have to register as a sex offender and serve 4 years of probation. Beavers' attorney was taken aback by the sentencing, saying, quote, "This is going to be on the news. His children are in school. They're going to see it. There's going to be more with them being teased. It's something that we were completely shocked that he got prison time for. I've been doing this for 27 years. I thought at best or worst, local center justice time, so I'm really shocked." End quote. Beavers' attorney plans to appeal the sentence as soon as possible. Renovating the Cincinnati Music Hall, a local landmark, is a primary goal of some candidates. Allie Martin has the whole story next.
The Cincinnati Music Hall has graced the community with its beauty inside and out. However, what many don't know is the work that still needs to be done under the surface.
Discussions about renovating Music Hall have been underway for several years, and it's focused on preserving and improving the experience for patrons who come into Music Hall. We're one of the largest theaters in the country today. We see 3,500 people, and Music Hall is a much loved space in Cincinnati. It's a unique venue. It's a National Historic Landmark, which is a really nice way of saying it's a very old building. And it has a lot of mechanical, electrical, plumbing needs that the last major renovation dates from the 1970s. So you can imagine the plumbing systems, the electrical systems in that intervening period. There's a need for not only an enhancement of the patron amenities, restrooms, handicap access, concession service, and so forth, but also behind the scenes there are many other production-related issues that we've grown used to dealing with that need to be addressed.
Even with all the necessary renovations, its presence has made a lasting impression as the surrounding over-the-Rhine community flourishes.
I think the Cincinnati Music Hall means a great deal to this city. Some of my best memories are sitting in Washington Park looking up at the building. And beyond just the building, I think what it stands for, the importance of culture and of music, is something that is especially important given today's society and the focus on doing the next thing and being busy. So I think it's very important.
The Music Hall offers a handful of ways to get involved with the hopes of raising greater awareness for the building's needs.
There are many outlets to participate, to get engaged, to be ushers, to volunteer to give tours of Music Hall, and generally to attend events that are held here. That's another big part of just being in the fabric of a city that has these wonderful buildings.
Pope Francis continues to make splashes in the media. On Tuesday, Pope Francis declared that evolution and the Big Bang Theory are acceptable explanations for how our universe originated and do not conflict with Catholic teaching. Pope Francis said, quote, "We run the risk of imagining God was a magician with a magic wand able to do everything, but that is not so," end quote. Historically, the Catholic Church is known for rejecting scientific explanations of the creation of our world, and many news outlets reported the Pope's statement as revolutionary in the Catholic Church. However, Pope Francis is not the first pope to accept science within religion. The same view was expressed by Pope Pius in 1950 and again by Pope John Paul II in 1996. Nevertheless, there's a wide public understanding of Pope Francis as a revolutionary figure for the Catholic Church because of the manner in which he chooses to frame his teachings. His clear communication and modern approach resonates with even non-religious people and non-Christians. Local experts are predicting that an all-time low turnout at the polls this year. Recently, Carla from the PPP program examined this projection.
Over the past 4 years, voter turnout in the Cincinnati area has been decreasing at a continual rate. This November's election will be no different. In fact, this year's election is predicted to produce the lowest turnout this country has ever seen.
I think it depends on who you ask with regards to how serious of an issue low voter turnout is. But as far as how it affects the average citizen, it's a serious issue.
A lot of the voters that do not get out there to the polls are college students. In most cases, these students are either unsure of the issues or confused on how and where to register.
Plan on voting in November?
No, I do not.
And why don't you plan on voting?
Because I don't understand how the registration process works, nor do I know anything about the people who are running.
Do you plan on voting this November?
No.
And why don't you plan on voting?
Honestly, I did not know about it.
In reality, college students and most other voters who are registered to vote are more likely to show up to the polls on Election Day. Studies have shown that registration is the key to getting students to turn out. In 2008, of the 18 to 24-year-old college students that were registered to vote, 87% of the students actually voted.
I plan on voting because I think it's important to have a voice in who your elected officials are.
Do you plan on voting this November?
Yes, I do.
And why do you plan on voting?
Because every vote counts.
Whether the reason is disinterest or disagreement, voters are not taking advantage of Election Day. However, there may be hope in the youth of this generation.
North Korea is cracking down on the threat of Ebola that is up and coming. They have said that they will be quarantining any foreigner that comes into the country for 21 days. North Korea will be broadcasting news daily in order to increase awareness of the quickly spreading disease. Han Yong-sik, the director of the Nampo Inspection Center, says, quote, "Our army, which protects our borders, has a high responsibility to block the disease. We are strengthening quarantine education and thoroughly inspecting boats and planes to ensure that not even a single person carrying the disease enters our country," end quote. No information has been known about whether people will be able to travel in or out of North Korea yet, but has left businesses confused on their current conditions, as a shutdown could hurt investments or future transactions. The Chosin Exchange blog says, quote, "Overall, this episode seems to reflect two things. First, a callous attitude towards stakeholders in the country's development, which stems from poor communications or the lack of will to communicate. Second, that North Korea's fear of foreign outweighs their interest in whatever benefits foreign investment brings," end quote. The governor's race, arguably the most important poll on the ballot, influences the other races through college students' votes. PPP student Ben Moore tells you whether Xavier students' votes are influenced by that race.
Voter turnout can be greatly affected by the ballot's most important issue, the governor's race. Incumbent John Kasich has a widening lead over challenger Ed Fitzgerald. Because it's a governor's race, voter turnout will likely be higher than last year, unfortunately at the expense of other Ohio races. Over 75% of college students do not vote in midterm elections, most cite being unregistered as the reason. They either do not know where or how to register, miss the deadline, or simply do not find the other race's issues important.
This year I will not be voting. These smaller elections are as important as presidential elections.
Though not all registered voters will vote, the remaining 24% recognize the importance of every race adding up to the ideal Ohio government.
I believe that all elections are important. I haven't really paid attention to the issues that are on this ballot, so I'm not sure.
The active voters will increase turnout for the 28th District congressional race, where Republican Jonathan Deaver's straightforward platform speaks to college youth.
I have paid most attention to Deaver, and I support his stance on his points. I support John Deaver's stance on strengthening education in the area and trying to build that up so then we can have a stronger next generation coming forward.
College-age voters are imperative and could ultimately decide the outcome of other statewide races in Ohio.
Recent polling data from USA Today suggests that Ohio's congressional races have clear frontrunners at this point. Ohio's gubernatorial race also has a clear favorite, with Governor Kasich having a commanding 22-point lead less than a week before the election. Speaker of the House John Boehner, who represents Ohio's 8th district, is expected to handily maintain a seat for the 13th term. Nevertheless, there are still tight races that are keeping the public on the edge of their seats. One of the most notable is the senatorial race in Kentucky between current Republican Senator and Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell and Democratic Party challenger Allison Lundergan Grimes. Polls have Grimes a few points behind McConnell at this point, but the race is close enough that it could still go either way. Losing Minority Leader McConnell would be a massive blow to the Republican presence in the Senate, with his leadership playing a prominent role in the current makeup of the Republican congressional leadership. Grimes' election would be the first time that a woman is elected to the senatorial position in Kentucky. Grimes has been gaining on Senator McConnell in the polls, so the final result will surely be a close one. Voters will also want to pay attention to the State Board of Education race and the candidates running in their district. The person elected will likely play a tremendous role in shaping the future of the Ohio public schools, as the Board of Education will soon decide whether or not to throw out the Common Core for Ohio. Regardless of whether polling information says that an election may be already over or not, your vote still matters and still counts. If you are registered, please do your civic duty and take the time to vote, no matter who you vote for. Let your voice be heard and participate in the democratic process, as all Americans have a responsibility to do.
Tim Cook, the CEO of Apple, came out as gay yesterday. Yahoo News reports, quote, "Many people at Apple had known that he was gay for years, and in fact his sexual orientation was an open secret in corporate and media arenas. Being gay has helped him understand the plight of other minorities," end quote. Some people believe that this will put a toll on Apple's reputation in some countries where homosexuality is banned, such as the Middle East and in Africa, but Cook believes that he did the right thing by coming out publicly. Yahoo News also reports, quote, "Many states still have laws discriminating against people on the basis of their sexual orientation." Only 21 states and the District of Columbia explicitly prohibit discrimination on the basis of sexual orientation. Alabama, where Cook was raised, allows employers to fire people on that basis, for example. End quote. That's all from this desk. Have a great weekend. Up next is Andrew Tanner with the Xavier Sports Report.
Happy Friday, Xavier fans, and welcome to a Halloween edition of the Xavier Sports Report. I'm Andrew Tanner. XU basketball tipped off its season with Muskie Madness last Friday, and Xavier Sports was there to capture the action. All right, Muskie Madness 2014 began with player introductions. That's D. Davis leading a dance mob, followed by MC Chris, Coach Mack hyping the fans up with a rap. For three-point shootout, here's JP Makura. D'Artagnan's impressed. Makura's high was 19 makes. He made 15 in the first round. That money ball? Money in the bank. He won the contest, and you see that smug look? Xavier just found its replacement for Brad Redford. Then the pep band played him a victory tune. Jeff Robinson used to dunk when he played for X. Here are some of the current dunkers, including freshman Sean O'Mara, who says white boys can't dunk. And then Jalen Reynolds, he's coming off an injury, looks healed to me. Let's see him again get up there with a windmill for the slam. And look at this clown, freshman McKinday London juggling 3 balls on his way to the hoop. So it was an overall fun night of Muskie Madness for both the team and the fans. It should be an exciting season, and keep your eye out for those freshmen, because you just saw blue chip prospects in Makura, O'Mara, and London dominating those skills competitions. Xavier's season kicks off on November 15th against Northern Arizona. Now onto the pitch, where Xavier women's soccer will host Creighton in its season finale tonight at 6:30 p.m. Prior to the game, seniors Meredith Gleichert, Katie Marksberry, Katie Schweer, Alyssa Tyndall, and Margaret Woods will be honored on the field. And Xavier's coming off a 1-0 loss to number 9 DePaul, in which the Muskie defense held the Big East leading offense to only a single goal, and that's only the 4th time this season the Blue Demons failed to score more than 2 goals. The Blue Jays are coming off a double overtime draw at Butler. They're 3rd in Big East play. The Muskies lead the all-time series 3-1, look to go up 4-1 tonight. So head out to the pitch and watch the women if you have time to spare between your Halloween parties. The match will also feature a costume contest and trick-or-treat night, where the best costume wins a Xavier-themed prize. Should be a scary, fun night for all involved. And the men's team takes the field tomorrow night against the Villanova Wildcats. XU looks to rebound from that tough 1-0 loss to Georgetown last weekend. That snapped a 9-game win streak for the Musketeers. It's been a hard stretch for XU. They've just gone 2-1-0 against 3 consecutive top 15 teams. They got number 6 Creighton, number 15 Marquette, and the 13th ranked Hoyas. But regardless, Xavier has been on a very hot streak all season, unbeaten in regulation since August 31st. And their regular season schedule concludes with senior night at home against Butler tomorrow. where their senior class of Matt Hill, Garrett Halfhill, Owen Steinwall, Will Walker, and Eric Oswald will be honored before the game. And that has been a very talented class for Xavier. Head out to the pitch and support them on their final home game with the Muskies. That's it for this edition of the Xavier Sports Report. Good luck to all our athletes this weekend. I'm Andrew Tanner, and for everyone here at the studio, enjoy the games, have a great weekend, and have a fun and safe Halloween.